Last month, I received a heartbreaking email from Sarah. Her father, once the life of every family gathering, had become so difficult to be around that her children no longer wanted to visit their grandfather. It happened so gradually, she wrote, that we didn't notice until it was too late. Now family dinners are tense, conversations end in arguments, and my kids make excuses not to visit. The worst part? My father doesn't even realize he's pushing us away. Stories like Sarah's are more common than you might think. As we age, certain habits can develop, some subtle, others more obvious, that strain even the closest relationships. The painful truth is that many seniors end up spending their golden years increasingly isolated, not understanding why their children and grandchildren visit less and less. Today, I want to talk about something that few people discuss openly: the 6 habits that commonly develop with age that can drive away the people you care about most. This isn't about blaming or shaming, it's about awareness. Because the truth is, most people don't recognize these behaviors in themselves until relationships have already suffered. By the end of this video, you'll understand these habits, why they develop, and most importantly, what you can do to prevent them from harming your most precious connections. Because your later years should be filled with love, laughter, and family, not loneliness and confusion about why no one comes to visit anymore. Stay with me until the end, because the final habit is one that nearly every aging person develops without realizing it. And it might be the most damaging of all. I'll also share practical strategies that have helped thousands of seniors rebuild strained relationships and enjoy deeper connections with their families. Don't miss the final insight. It's one that most people overlook, yet it holds incredible power in predicting what lies ahead. These markers could completely reshape how you see your future and add valuable years to your life. If this has sparked your interest, show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this video with those you care about. Together, let's make informed choices for a healthier, longer life. Now let's get started with the first habit that might be pushing your loved ones away. Habit 1. Becoming overly critical and judgmental. One of the most common habits that develops with age is becoming increasingly critical and judgmental, not just of the world around you, but of the people you love most. Think about Thomas, a 72-year-old retired teacher. Throughout his career, he maintained high standards for his students and himself. But in retirement, with fewer outlets for his attention, those standards transformed into harsh criticism. His daughter's parenting choices, his son-in-law's career decisions, even the way his grandchildren dressed, nothing seemed to meet his approval. You're letting them play those video games again? In my day, children played outside. That outfit is completely inappropriate. Don't your parents teach you anything about self-respect? You call that a career? In my day, we committed to one company for life. Thomas didn't see himself as critical. In his mind, he was simply offering wisdom and guidance from his years of experience. But his family experienced his comments differently. Each visit became a minefield of potential criticism. His grandchildren began making excuses not to visit. His daughter stopped sharing details about her life, tired of defending her choices. Soon, family gatherings became less frequent, shorter, and more strained. Why does this happen? As we age, several factors can contribute to becoming more critical. First, the world changes rapidly, and what was once familiar becomes foreign. This can create a sense of displacement that manifests as criticism of new ways of doing things. Second, aging often brings a loss of control in many areas of life: health, independence, relevance in society. Being critical of others can be an unconscious attempt to regain some sense of authority or importance. Third, seeing younger generations navigate life differently than you did can trigger insecurities about your own life choices and legacy. But here's what you can do instead. Before offering criticism, ask yourself, is this actually harmful or just different from what I'm used to? Different doesn't mean wrong. Practice the 3-to-1 rule. For every critical thought you express, share 3 positive observations first. When tempted to criticize, try curiosity instead. That's interesting. Tell me why you chose to handle it that way. Remember that unsolicited advice, no matter how well-intentioned, rarely feels supportive. Instead, It often communicates, "I don't trust your judgment." Thomas eventually realized what was happening when his daughter finally spoke up. It wasn't easy to hear, but it gave him the opportunity to change. He started by simply watching more and commenting less. When he did share opinions, he framed them as his perspective rather than absolute truths. Gradually, the tension during family visits eased and his relationships began to heal. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 1 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content for our community. Now, let's move forward. Habit 2. Excessive complaining and negativity. The second habit that often develops with age is a tendency toward excessive complaining and negativity. What begins as occasional frustrations can gradually transform into a constant stream of complaints about everything from the weather to politics to physical ailments. Consider Margaret, a 68-year-old woman who had always been known for her warm personality and positive outlook. After retirement and a series of minor health issues, her conversations began to change. What started as occasional mentions of her arthritis pain evolved into detailed accounts of every ache and discomfort. Comments about the news shifted from thoughtful observations to dark predictions about society's collapse. Even simple questions like, "How are you?" triggered lengthy complaints about everything going wrong in her life. At first, her family listened sympathetically. They understood that aging brings challenges and wanted to support her. But over time, the constant negativity became exhausting. Phone calls that once brought joy now felt like emotional labor. Her grandchildren, unable to relate to the constant complaints, began to withdraw. Even longtime friends started limiting their time with her. "Why would anyone want to spend time with me?" Margaret wondered, not recognizing how her outlook was affecting those around her. This pattern develops for understandable reasons. Aging often brings legitimate challenges, physical pain, loss of loved ones, and changes in capability that are genuinely difficult. The brain naturally has a negativity bias that can strengthen with age, making problems seem more significant than positive experiences. Complaining can become a habit that provides temporary relief or attention, creating a cycle that's hard to break. Many seniors experience a shrinking social circle, which means fewer interactions and opportunities for positive conversations. However, understanding these factors doesn't change the impact that constant negativity has on relationships. Even the most patient family members eventually become drained. Here's how to catch and change this pattern. Practice the complaint sandwich technique. If you need to express something negative, place it between 2 positive observations. Set a complaint timer for yourself. Allow 5 minutes to vent about difficulties, then intentionally change the subject to something more positive. Keep a gratitude journal where you write down 3 good things each day, no matter how small. This trains your brain to notice the positive. Ask trusted friends or family to gently point out when complaining has dominated the conversation for too long. Remember that while your challenges are real and deserve acknowledgement, relationships need balance to thrive. For Margaret, change began when her daughter gave her a journal with a simple request. "Mom, before our weekly call, would you write down 3 good things that happened this week? I'd love to hear those first." This small shift helped Margaret become aware of her negative focus and gradually rebalance her conversations. Her relationships didn't transform overnight, but over time, people began to enjoy her company again. Negativity is contagious, but so is positivity. The choice of which to spread is yours. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating content that matters. Now let's move forward. Habit 3. Inflexibility and resistance to change. The third habit that can seriously damage relationships in later years is increasing inflexibility and a stubborn resistance to change. This goes beyond having established preferences. It's an inability to adapt to new situations, consider different perspectives, or accommodate others' needs. Consider Robert, a 76-year-old retired accountant. Throughout his working life, he had been known for his precision and reliability. But in retirement, these qualities hardened into rigidity. Family gatherings had to follow his exact schedule. Holidays needed to observe traditions precisely as they had been done for decades. When his daughter suggested hosting Thanksgiving at her house to save him the trouble, he refused outright. When his doctor recommended changing his diet for health reasons, he dismissed the advice without consideration. "We've always done it this way," became his mantra, regardless of changing circumstances or the needs of others. His grown children found themselves increasingly frustrated. Planning anything with their father became an exercise in compliance rather than collaboration. His grandchildren stopped sharing new ideas or experiences, knowing they would likely be dismissed. His wife found herself constantly apologizing to others for his inflexibility. Why can't everyone just respect the way things should be done? Robert would wonder, not recognizing how his rigidity was isolating him from a world that continued to evolve. This pattern of increasing inflexibility often develops for several reasons. Routine and predictability create a sense of security, particularly as other aspects of life become less certain. The mental effort required to adapt to new situations increases with age, making change feel more difficult and stressful. Previous life experience can reinforce the belief that "my way works," without recognizing that circumstances have changed. Fear of making mistakes or appearing incompetent can make trying new approaches feel threatening. However, relationships require flexibility to thrive. When one person refuses to bend, others eventually stop trying to connect. Here's how to maintain healthy adaptability. Practice saying "let me think about that" instead of an immediate no when presented with new ideas or changes. Identify your non-negotiables, the few things that truly matter to you, and be flexible about everything else. Challenge yourself to try one new thing each week, a different food, activity, or route to a familiar place, to keep your adaptability muscles strong. When you find yourself resisting change, ask, "Is this really about the change itself, or about my fear of losing control?" Remember that respecting traditions doesn't mean they can't evolve as circumstances change. For Robert, the wake-up call came when his oldest grandson declined an invitation to the annual family vacation, saying he couldn't deal with the stress of Grandpa's rules anymore. With this clear consequence before him, Robert began the difficult work of loosening his grip. He started small, allowing dinner to be served 30 minutes later than his preferred time, trying a new restaurant suggested by his wife. Each small success made the next one easier. His relationships didn't heal overnight, but as his family experienced his genuine efforts to be more flexible, they began to meet him halfway. Flexibility doesn't mean abandoning all structure or principles. It means holding them gently enough that relationships can still flourish within them. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 3 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support truly makes a difference. Now, let's continue. Habit 4. Dwelling in the past and resisting the present. The fourth habit that can damage relationships as we age is constantly dwelling in the past while resisting engagement with the present. This goes beyond occasional reminiscing. It's a persistent pattern of comparing today's world unfavorably to the past, refusing to engage with current topics, and recycling the same stories without making new memories. Consider Eleanor, a 74-year-old widow. In her younger years, she had been vibrant and engaged, always learning and trying new things. But as she aged, her conversations increasingly revolved around the same stories from decades ago. Family gatherings became predictable. Eleanor would steer every conversation toward how things were back in the good old days, dismissing current events, new technologies, and her grandchildren's interests as trivial compared to her past experiences. You think that's impressive? Back in 1972, these modern devices are ruining society. When I was young, people knew how to really connect. Nobody makes music, movies, food like they used to. Everything today is garbage compared to what we had. Her family initially listened patiently, respecting her memories, but over time, they stopped sharing their current experiences, knowing they would be devalued. Her grandchildren, finding no common ground for conversation, began to avoid her. Even old friends drifted away, tired of the same stories without any interest in creating new shared experiences. Why doesn't anyone want to listen to my stories anymore? Eleanor wondered, not recognizing that relationships need to exist in the present to remain vital. This pattern develops for several understandable reasons. The past represents a time of greater capability, relevance, and sometimes happiness, making it comfortable to dwell there. Rapid societal changes can make the present feel foreign and even threatening, increasing the appeal of familiar memories. Sharing wisdom and experiences is a valuable role for elders, but without balance, it becomes one-sided. Cognitive changes can make it easier to recall distant memories than to form and share new ones. While nostalgia in moderation is healthy, relationships can only thrive when there's mutual engagement in the present moment. When one person refuses to mentally join others in the here and now, meaningful connection becomes impossible. Here's how to maintain a healthy balance between honoring the past and living in the present. Practice the 25-75 rule. Limit reminiscing to about 25% of conversation time, devoting the remaining 75% to current topics and future plans. When sharing a story from the past, connect it explicitly to the present. That reminds me of something similar today. Express genuine curiosity about current events, technologies, and interests of younger generations, even if they seem initially foreign. Create new memories and experiences, even small ones, that give you fresh material for conversation. Remember that wisdom isn't just about sharing what you know. It's also about continuing to learn and grow. For Eleanor, change began when her teen grandson directly asked, "Grandma, don't you ever get tired of talking about the same things? Don't you want to make new memories too?" His honesty stung, but it created an opening. She began making small efforts, asking questions about his interests, trying a smartphone class at the local library, watching current shows so she could discuss them. Gradually, her relationships became more balanced. She still shared her valuable past experiences, but no longer at the expense of present connection. The past shaped who you are, but the present is where your relationships live. Both deserve your attention. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating content that makes a difference. Now let's move forward. Habit 5. Neglecting personal care and health. The 5th habit that can strain relationships in later years is neglecting personal care, hygiene, and health. This isn't about the natural changes that come with aging, but rather giving up on taking care of yourself in ways that are still within your control. Consider James, a 79-year-old widower. After his wife passed away, his self-care gradually declined. He began wearing the same clothes for days, sometimes weeks. His personal hygiene suffered. He bathed infrequently, stopped going to the dentist, and no longer bothered with basic grooming. He ignored his doctor's recommendations for managing his diabetes and heart condition, skipping medications and appointments. His home, once well-maintained, became cluttered and unclean. "Why bother?" he would say when his daughter expressed concern. "At my age, what difference does it make?" His family's worry soon turned to frustration. His grandchildren became reluctant to hug him or sit nearby. Friends stopped inviting him to social gatherings. His daughter found herself dreading visits, exhausted by both the smell in his home and the constant anxiety about his declining health. Even neighbors began to keep their distance. James interpreted this growing isolation as proof that no one cared about him anymore, not recognizing how his self-neglect was pushing others away. This pattern develops for several complex reasons. Depression, which is common but underdiagnosed in seniors, can make self-care feel overwhelming or pointless. The loss of a spouse who previously encouraged healthy habits can remove vital external motivation. Physical limitations can make certain aspects of personal care more challenging, leading to giving up entirely rather than adapting. A sense that it doesn't matter anymore can develop when one's social circle narrows or purpose seems diminished. While aging naturally brings changes in appearance and ability, basic self-care remains essential, not just for health, but for social connection. Even close family members struggle to maintain comfortable proximity when hygiene is severely neglected, and worry about willfully ignored health conditions creates emotional strain on relationships. Here's how to maintain appropriate self-care even when motivation is low. Establish simple daily routines that don't require decision-making. Morning hygiene, medication, and grooming become automatic when done at the same time each day. Invest in adaptive tools that make self-care easier despite physical limitations. Long-handled brushes, shower seats, pill organizers with alarms. Schedule regular social activities as motivation to maintain hygiene and appearance. Be honest with yourself about depression. If you've lost interest in caring for yourself, talk to your doctor about possible treatment. Remember that self-care is not vanity or self-indulgence. It's an act of respect for yourself and consideration for those who care about you. For James, change began when his doctor spoke bluntly during a rare appointment. Your daughter isn't nagging you. She's fighting for more time with you. Each medication you skip potentially shortens that time. This reframing helped James see his self-neglect as affecting others, not just himself. He started with small steps: a daily shower, clean clothes, taking medications as prescribed. His family noticed and responded positively, which provided motivation to continue. Taking care of yourself isn't just about living longer. It's about making the time you have with loved ones more comfortable and positive for everyone. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 5 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's continue to our final point. Habit 6. Refusing to acknowledge your impact on others. The sixth and perhaps most damaging habit that develops with age is refusing to acknowledge how your behavior affects others, dismissing feedback, and rejecting the possibility that you might need to change. This is the habit I promised to discuss, the one that nearly everyone develops to some degree without realizing it. It's also the habit that, left unchecked, can eventually leave even the most loving family members feeling they have no choice but to create distance. Consider Martha, a 77-year-old woman who had always been strong-willed and independent. Throughout her life, these qualities served her well, but as she aged, independence hardened into a refusal to consider how her actions and decisions affected her family. When her children expressed concern about her driving after she had several minor accidents, she accused them of trying to control her. When they suggested she might need help with home maintenance after she fell trying to clean gutters, she told them they were overreacting and being disrespectful. "I've lived my life just fine without anyone telling me what to do, and I'm not starting now," she would say, shutting down any conversation that suggested she might need to adjust her behavior. Her family's genuine concern was met with defensiveness, accusations, and sometimes even manipulation. She would threaten to cut off contact if they persisted with their interference. Over time, her children found themselves in an impossible position. Watch their mother put herself and potentially others at risk, or continue trying to help and face her anger and rejection. Eventually, their visits became less frequent, their phone calls shorter. Worried about triggering her defensiveness, they stopped sharing their own struggles and concerns. The relationship became increasingly superficial. "Why don't my children trust me to know what's best for myself?" Martha would wonder, not recognizing that her refusal to even consider their perspective was the very thing damaging their trust. This pattern develops for several deep-seated reasons. Fear of losing independence can make any suggestion of change feel threatening to one's autonomy and dignity. A lifetime of being the advice giver rather than the receiver can make it difficult to accept that the dynamic might sometimes need to reverse. Cognitive changes can reduce self-awareness and the ability to accurately assess one's own capabilities and limitations. Pride and identity become increasingly tied to self-sufficiency, making it painful to acknowledge when adjustments are needed. However, healthy relationships require mutual adaptation. When one person refuses to ever bend, acknowledge impact, or consider change, relationships inevitably suffer. Here's how to maintain the wisdom to know when to stand firm and when to adapt. Practice receiving feedback without immediate defense by simply saying, "Thank you for sharing your concern. Let me think about that." Distinguish between situations that are preferences, where you can rightfully maintain your position, and those involving safety or well-being, where others' concerns deserve serious consideration. Ask trusted friends of your own generation if they see the same issues your family is raising. Sometimes hearing from peers is easier than from adult children. Remember that adjusting behavior based on loving feedback isn't surrendering your autonomy. It's exercising your freedom to choose relationship harmony. Consider that your family's interfering comes from wanting more quality time with you, not less. For Martha, change began only after a serious car accident that fortunately injured no one but could have been catastrophic. This concrete consequence made it impossible to dismiss her family's previous concerns as overreaction. With this opening, her daughter gently said, "Mom, we don't want to control your life. We want to be part of it for as long as possible." This reframing helped Martha begin to see that considering their perspective wasn't about losing independence, it was about preserving relationship. Being strong means having the courage to listen and sometimes change, not just the determination to stand your ground. As we reach the end of our discussion, I want to emphasize that recognizing these habits in yourself isn't about shame or guilt. It's about awareness, because awareness is the first step toward change. These 6 habits, becoming overly critical, excessive negativity, inflexibility, dwelling in the past, neglecting self-care, and refusing to acknowledge your impact on others, develop gradually and often invisibly. Most people don't realize they've fallen into these patterns until relationships have already suffered. The good news is that it's rarely too late to begin healing connections with those you love. Every day brings new opportunities to interact differently, to listen more openly, to respond with greater flexibility and awareness. Think about which of these habits might have crept into your life. Perhaps you recognized yourself in one description, or maybe aspects of several felt familiar. Whatever you noticed, remember that small changes can make a profound difference in how others experience your presence. Ask yourself, do my loved ones seem eager to spend time with me, or do I sense reluctance? Do conversations flow easily, or do they feel strained? Do I frequently feel misunderstood or unappreciated by family members? These questions can offer valuable clues about patterns that might be affecting your relationships. Remember that changing habits formed over decades takes patience, both with yourself and from others. You won't transform overnight, and there will be days when old patterns reassert themselves. What matters is the consistent effort to move in a healthier direction. Your later years have the potential to be among the richest of your life, filled with deep connections, meaningful conversations, and the joy of watching younger generations flourish with your loving support. Don't let unconscious habits rob you of these precious experiences. I'd like to leave you with a thought that one of my wise mentors shared with me. The measure of a well-lived life isn't just what you accomplished or accumulated. It's the quality of connection you maintained with those you love along the way. Thank you for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one insight from this video that resonated with you, or a small change you plan to make in your relationships. Your thoughts are important to us, and reading your comments gives us great motivation to continue creating content that matters. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might benefit from these insights. Your support helps us continue creating content that informs and inspires our community. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.